So let's talk about credit cards. Hi, if it's your first time here, I'm Charm from Ready to Adult Philippines, a channel about personal finance, entrepreneurship, and adulting how-tos. Here are our featured comments for the week, and if you want to get featured, then comment down below. And here are our Instagram shoutouts. If you want to get featured, then Insta story this video and tag me at ReadyToAdultPH. Okay, so credit cards. People are either afraid of them or want them for the wrong reasons. And that's understandable because a credit card is a tool that can either help you with your finances or do harm to them. So this is gonna be a long video, so let me break down to you what we're gonna be talking about today. First, we're gonna be talking about what a credit card is and what are the things associated with that. And the next is we're gonna jump into the pros and cons of having a credit card. After that, we're gonna be talking about how you can get a credit card. The next is we're gonna be talking about the types of credit cards, the charges and fees that credit cards may have. And the last is we're gonna talk about the things that you need to do when you get your credit card. Okay, so let's start the video. First is what is a credit card. So a credit card is a piece of plastic that allows you to spend money via credit or utang. So you have a line of credit with the bank, which you then have to pay for at the end of the month. And how that works is that you have a billing cycle and then you have a payment due date. Okay, so for example, your billing cycle is from July 8th to August 7th. So that's 1 month. So everything that you spend for that month will usually be due at the end of August. So it can be either August 30 or 31. So that's your payment due date. So that's why it works as a buy now, pay later. So this can really be a great tool to use for budgeting because all your spendings are consolidated, but it can also be really detrimental if you can't control your spendings. Okay, so now let's talk about other similar cards. We have the prepaid card, we have the debit card, and the credit card. So what's the difference between these cards? So a prepaid card like the PayMaya card or the BDO Cash card, so these cards are more of beginner cards, so they're not attached to a savings account, but you can still use them in stores, online purchases, or ATMs, but you have to load it first, okay? So next is the debit card. A debit card is linked to your savings account so that what's in your savings account can be spent for the debit card. So the debit card is like an upgraded version of a prepaid card, but it relies on your savings account. And the last is a credit card, which I mentioned earlier, you have a line of credit in the bank. So meaning you don't even have to have a savings account or you don't have to load the card before you can use it. So it's like you're borrowing money from the bank. I hope we're clear with the differences with those cards. Now let's talk about card brands. So you may have heard about brands like Visa, MasterCard, UnionPay, JCB, Diners Club, Amex or American Express. So what are these? So they're basically just credit card brands or networks, and the main difference I would say for them, especially here in the Philippines, is that they just offer different promos. They partner with different merchants, so they offer different promos. Okay, so generally, if it's your first credit card, you can get a Visa or a MasterCard because it's the most common ones, and they're usually known to be a little bit cheaper in terms of annual fees compared to the other ones. Okay, so we'll be talking about fees and charges later on. Let's move on to the pros and cons of having a credit card. Okay, so first, let's talk about the pros. Of course, the very first pro is that it's very convenient. You don't have to bring around a lot of cash, especially if you're buying a big ticket item like a ref or a television. You don't have to lug around a lot of cash because you can use your credit card. Another convenient thing about credit cards is you can take advantage of 0% installments. Okay, next is that it's flexible. Like I said earlier, you can pay for all the things that you've spent this month, next month. So you can be a little bit more flexible in terms of your budgeting. The third is it's secure. So again, if you're buying something big, you don't have to bring a lot of cash. You can just bring your credit card. And if you lose your credit card, you can just call the bank and have them lock your credit card, or you can lock it from your app. And also, it's pretty easy to dispute charges or purchases that are not yours. Again, you just call up the customer service hotline and they really prioritize those kinds of cases. And the next is that you can get rewards. So I mentioned in my previous video some of the credit cards I use, especially for shopping or for traveling, so you can check that out. But basically, a lot of credit cards offer rewards, rebates, or miles. I'll be discussing more about that later, but it's a good way to get something back every time you have essential purchases like groceries or other utility bills. So next is building credit history. Okay, so we don't really have a credit score here in the Philippines, but we have this thing called credit history. It's easier to get approved if you already have a credit history with a bank, and then they can see that you pay on time and in full every month. Then it's easier for them to approve your loan. Okay, so again, it's building relationship with financial institutions. Now let's talk about the cons. Okay, so the first con is the risk of overspending. I said it in my worst mistakes video, overspending is really a tendency, especially because of lifestyle inflation. And when it's just a credit card, you don't really feel that you're spending the money as compared to giving actual cash. So if you notice, spending 10,000 pesos in cash and swiping 10,000 pesos in your credit card feels very different. And that can be a risk if you can't discipline yourself when you spend with your credit card. Okay, so next is high interest rates. So you can only encounter this when you don't pay your credit card in full. So credit card interest rates are so high. On average, it's around 3% per month. So that's 36% in a year. So that's really high. Again, I really discourage you to leave any balance in your credit card, and you always have to pay them in full. Okay, so the next con is something similar. They have really high penalty fees. So if you exceed your limit or you pay late for your credit card, the fees are really high. Okay, so we're gonna be talking more about that later, but that is definitely a con. And the last is there is also a risk of fraud. So credit cards are typically secure, like I mentioned earlier, but there is still a risk of fraud. So credit card fraud, like credit card phishing, is very common. For example, when fake credit card agents call you up, ask for your credit card number, for your expiry date, your CVC, and then they're gonna say to you that, okay, we'll be sending a text, please tell me the one-time PIN, and then you'll give it. So never do that. They never ask for your CVC number, the 3-digit number at the back of your card, and also your one-time PIN. So never give those to anybody. So those things do happen. So that's another disadvantage of having a credit card. Okay, so now that we've talked about the pros and cons and you want to get yourself a credit card, how would you go about that? Okay, so let's talk about how you can get a credit card. There are so many ways to get a credit card. First is doing walk-ins. So you just walk into a bank and apply for a credit card. Next is you can apply for credit cards online. So I talked about some credit cards that you can get online in this video, and you can get cash back when you use Shopback. So I'll leave my Shopback link down below. So again, credit card application online. And third is applying through credit card pop-ups in malls or groceries. And usually when you do this, they give you freebies like a cap or an umbrella. So yeah, let's talk about some of the requirements that are needed when you apply for a credit card. First is you need to be 21 years old and above. Next is you need to fill up an application form. You need valid IDs. You need proof of income. For the proof of income, if you're employed, you need to be at least 1 year in employment. And they will be asking for either certificate of employment, your payslip, or your ITR. So if you're a business owner, they need at least 2 years of you being in a profitable business. So again, they will be asking for either an ITR or financial statements. So usually you need a gross income of around 120,000 to 1 million pesos in 1 year. Okay, so this depends on what credit card you are applying for. So some of the ways that you can get easily approved for a credit card is that if you have a primary credit card already with another bank, or if you already have an existing account or relationship with a certain bank. Okay, so it's easier for you to apply in those banks. Also, if you already have existing credit history, like maybe you already have approved loans and they can see that you're paying your loans on time. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that we don't have a credit score, but it will be harder for you to get approved for a credit card if you have negative files on their NFIS or the Negative File Information System. So the NFIS is a shared database of all the financial institutions and they basically record bad credit. Okay, so if you went delinquent on a loan, or you already have a past credit card that you have not paid for, then that will be in the NFIS, and that might be a hindrance for you if you apply for another credit card. Okay, now let's talk about the types of credit cards, and this is kind of grouped into 3 tiers. Okay, so for tier 1, that's usually the basic credit cards. That's credit cards that don't really have annual fees or other kinds of fees and penalties, but they also don't have rewards. And they usually have a smaller credit limit. So next is the tier 2. So for the tier 2, there are several types of credit cards under this tier. They can either be reward cards, rebate or cashback cards, or miles cards. So basically, these credit cards are kind of the mid-tier credit cards. They offer a lot of rewards and cashbacks and miles for travel, and they also offer a lot of promos as well. But with those benefits, they also usually have annual fees of around 2,500 to 5,000 pesos. Okay, so let's move on to the third tier of credit cards, and these are kind of the premium credit cards. So for these credit cards, you usually get higher payouts for points. You usually get unlimited access for lounge. You get a concierge. You get invited to more exclusive events and sales. And they also have bigger discounts for their partner merchants. Okay, so those are the premium credit cards. The annual fees for these credit cards range from 8 to 12,000 pesos here in the Philippines. So yeah, those are the more common types of credit cards here in the Philippines. Now let's talk about the fees and charges. So first are the annual fees. I've already mentioned this. Usually when there are more benefits to a card, there's also a higher annual fee. Okay, but again, you can also get credit cards with 0 annual fee for life. So you can also get that if it's your first credit card. So next are late payment fees. So for example, your credit card due date is on the 30th. And you're paying on the 29th with a check that usually clears around the 31st. So make sure you give allowance and make sure that your payment really goes through before the due date so you don't get slapped with a late payment fee. So for the late payment fees, it's usually around 750 pesos. Again, it differs for every card or every bank. So that's just the average. So the next one are interest fees or finance charges. Okay, so these are basically fees that you incur if you don't pay your credit card full every month. So the remaining balance gets slapped with a 3 to 3.5% interest every month. Okay, so that's really high. So again, I really discourage you guys keeping a balance on your credit cards. Pay them in full every month. Okay, so the fourth one are over limit fees. Over limit fees are basically charges that you get when you go over your credit limit. So for example, your credit limit is 20,000 and you go over it, like you spend 22,000. Your credit card will immediately be cut off for a while, and there is also a fee associated to that. Okay, so just make sure that you are not spending more than your credit limit. So for over limit fees, it's usually around 500 pesos per month. Next are cash advance fees. Okay, so some credit cards offer cash advances, so you can either do it over the counter or through a machine. So for the cash advance fee, it's usually around 3 to 5% of the money that you are advancing. Okay, so next are balance transfer fees, and this is when you move your balance from another credit card to another credit card. Sometimes they offer 0% balance fee because they want you to pay interest from this bank to their bank. But also sometimes there are fees associated with it, and again, it's around 3 to 5%. Okay, so last are international charges or cross-border fees. So these are charges that you get when you have foreign transactions. So when you're abroad, some credit cards offer really low ones, especially travel cards, but on average, they are at around 1 to 3.5%. Okay, so we are down to our last topic, and these are things that you need to do once you get your credit card. So when you get your credit card in the mail, first thing you have to do is to sign at the back of the credit card. Okay, so the next is you have to activate your card. Most credit cards can be activated online, but if you prefer to call them, you can also do that. So they send to you an unactivated card just in case it falls to the wrong person, they can't use your credit card. Okay, so Next is to link your card to their app. So I highly suggest for you to link your credit card to their app so that you can regularly check for fraudulent activities and such. Okay, so next is to read the terms and conditions, and especially the charges and fees that come with your credit card. So your credit card will be sent in an envelope like this, and they will include a credit card agreement and then the fees and charges. So be aware of these and really go over them, okay? Okay, so next is to store your credit card in a safe place, okay? So if you bring them every day, you put them in your wallet or in your bag. And then if you use it only for emergencies, then you can put it in a secure drawer, maybe at home. Okay, so the reason for this is it's really not advised to let any other person use your credit card. That's why in most of the transactions here in the Philippines, they let us sign in the credit card receipts. So lastly, and I mentioned this earlier, never give out your credit card number, your credit card expiry date, and the CVC number at the back of your card to anyone, especially not anyone over the phone or through email. So yeah, that's it. I know that this is gonna be a long video. I've been sitting here for a while, but I really hope that I covered everything that you need to know before you get your credit card. So I was thinking to make this video 2 separate parts, but I really don't want you guys to miss anything. So if you have any questions, then comment down below. I'm gonna reply to each and every one of you. And if you like this video, then please hit the like button and subscribe to this video. It really helps out this channel a lot. And again, I know that adulting is already hard, but personal finance doesn't have to be. That's why I make these kinds of videos for you guys. And this has been Charm from Ready to Adult Philippines, and I will see you on my next video.